I'm Tim Boyd. I'm International President of the Theosophical Society with its headquarters in Chennai, India. Adyar Theosophical Society is an organization focused on the unity of all life and the human family, and it's been around since 1875.
I'm Dr. Kavita Bery, and I am a medical director of Be Mind Body Skin, and I also have founded a school. It's called the Be School of Light, where I teach yoga philosophy and healing arts and very ancient medical practices that have been around since the ages. So I take a lot of pride in that work, working with the ancients. And I'm also a yoga teacher as well as a scientist. So I am a visiting scientist at the Center for Dermal Research, and I also have a position as an adjunct professor of biomedical engineering at Rutgers University. So what I was really interested in finding out is what you perceive to be like the core principles behind which the society was kind of put together, and what was like the vision when the society was put together.
Mm-hmm. Well, probably the Theosophical Society was started in 1875. So by contemporary standards, it's been around for quite a while. At the time that it was started, there were three fundamental ideas that it was built on. The one was basically an expression of unity, to form a nucleus of the universal family of humanity. And it was really kind of revolutionary at the time. If you think to 1875, because it was regardless of race, caste, creed, color. 1875 in the United States was 10 years after the Civil War, 10 years after it was legal to own people as possessions. So it was a very forward-looking idea. The second principle that was behind it was the idea that there are three primary ways that we as human beings try to approach truth or reality: science, philosophy, religion. So to encourage the study of those, each one has different approaches toward the truth. And then the third fundamental idea behind it, the third object, was to investigate those things that are within us that generally lie hidden, the powers that are latent within each and every one of us. So those are the core ideas that were at the beginning of the society.
So are there specific cultural backgrounds or religions that greatly influenced the formation of the Theosophical Society? Like, whether it was Eastern, whether it was Western?
Well, it's had a focus on both. I mean, the basic idea, theosophy means divine wisdom, theosophia. But actually, I tend to use the word ageless wisdom, because it's something that has been around in a variety of different forms as long as we've been around. But it draws on all of the different spiritual perspectives of the world. At the time of its founding, probably a lot of the emphasis was on Western spirituality, actually. Kabbalah and many of the trends that were active in the Western esoteric tradition. When the Theosophical Society moved to India, then of course it embraced a lot of the expressions of the Vedas, Buddhism. And so many people tend to think of it as more Eastern oriented, but really the various approaches that humanity has taken towards spirituality are each little offshoots of this ageless wisdom. One root, many, many branches that have appeared throughout our history.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, I briefly went through the Kabbalah and its teachings, and I find a very close connection to Shaiva Tantra, which is the northern Indian practice of Tantra. And I can see, like, even with the the tree of life and the yantras that were used in the Shaiva, the Trika Tantra, the yantra that was used, it's like almost like identical, like the drawings. So it's very interesting to kind of come to, I guess when you go deep into these philosophies, you see the connection. And it's very interesting how one can see that, everyone in different parts of the world are trying to do the same thing, discover the truth in their own way that was familiar to them in a way,
Well, I mean, these wisdom teachings have been around. It's on every continent and always has been.
Yeah.
And age after age, it presents itself in the ways that are accessible to the people of that time and that place.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways, right now is a little bit of a different time, in that because of the globalization of consciousness, something that appears in the US or appears in Cambodia immediately appears on the world thought.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me to my next question is, like, how do you see individuals in the current kind of scenario understanding or adopting, the teachings of Theosophy? It is very broad based, and I feel like I always think of it like, I teach the Yoga Sutras, and I always say there are these 8 limbs of the Yoga Sutras, and you might resonate with one, asana is not for everybody. You might resonate with the breathing. You might resonate with the, just the meditation. So accordingly, for today's generation, that is very much like instant gratification, like they want the results and they want it now. How do you see, the whole concept of Theosophy kind of being accepted by them, or what do you think they would gravitate towards as far as Theosophy is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the beauties of this whole ageless wisdom is that it is so deep and it is so broad that wherever somebody finds a point of interest, if they can deepen in that one thing, ultimately it leads them to this root of all of them.
I can see how that freedom is probably something that's going to resonate with a lot of this generation because unfortunately over the centuries, religion has kind of like become this oppressive kind of feeling for a lot of people, whether they come from whichever part of the world, like it's just, so I feel like in this generation they might feel that that you don't have to be any one way, you can kind of find your own way. And
I think the way you describe it is probably the way many people would today describe it, the idea that they know there is something, but their religions many times seem too limiting. And I think although religion probably in its intent is something that is very pure and it points you toward the highest, literally it is the tying ourselves back, linking ourselves back to God, to the divine. That's in theory. And of course the problem becomes that the religions are interpreted and are led by people like us who are limited, as all people are. And so it ends up that in many ways religion as practiced formally is almost in opposition to genuine spirituality, because it requires you to believe, whereas spirituality requires you to actually come to know. And there's a great difference between belief and actual knowledge. But the idea is that I think there is this spark that is within each one of us. And any way that we put an effort toward fanning its flame it leads us into that next step. And it's the depth of it is limitless. One of the beauties, to me at least, of theosophy. Like many people, I looked in a lot of different directions for what was real, what was true. And there are a lot of things out there. But what I have found in this theosophical worldview is something, the context is so broad, it is so profound, that all of the other avenues somehow find their place within it. So to me, it's very, very welcoming in that sense.
Amazing. Where do you see, as the president, how do you see the society evolving in the next 2 to 3 years, as far as, I know you have different retreats, different places where you offer teachings, and, how do you see the response of that? Has that grown over the years? Are you planning to do more in the next coming years?
Pretty much we're on a track of, just really trying to make it known to as many people as possible that such a thing as an ageless wisdom exists, is present, and is completely available. I think one of the beauties of the work that has been done by the Theosophical Society. In 1875, these were very exotic ideas in the Western world.
Yeah.
It was just way out. Now, of course, there isn't a dictionary in the world that doesn't have karma, reincarnation, all these really woo-woo concepts from the 1875. So the beauty of the work the Theosophical Society has been able to do is that from this one seed that was planted in the 1800s, now it has spread to just thousands of groups related to the spiritual life. But with the Theosophical Society, what is important to us is that there is this very rich, very complete context out of which all of these things draw. And so this has to remain available and be known to people.
Right.
So that's very, very important.
Yes. So as far as the science aspect of the Theosophical Society, is there a formed kind of group that discusses more scientific concepts?
Yeah, actually there are people who are much more attracted toward the scientific aspect, who are members of the Theosophical Society, many of them practicing in various aspects of scientific fields. So there is specifically a theoscience group, and so there's a lot of things that cutting edge sorts of ideas that they are much more in tune with. That's not, from my perspective, I think it's important, but that's not my personal main focus. But yeah, that's there. You have people who are deeply involved in the religious aspect as well, philosophical aspect.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as a physician myself, like dealing with the body, I always, being a yogi, also seeing a multidimensional body, I think is the way to go for the future of medicine, and not just limit our knowledge to the physical body. And so, a big part of what I do is also teach multidimensional anatomy, and and that's where my research is, and that's why I guess I'm drawn to occultic Paracelsus and all these teachings of these great philosophers and scientists from the bygone eras. So spirituality is a big part of becoming a healer. So I can see how having one society that offers that ability to kind of grow your spiritual side, as well as utilize that to your scientific side or your logical brain, and be able to use that, because that is really what I see, almost the requirement. If I were to train doctors in seeing the body the way I do, I would need to first have them start having that open mind of first seeing it themselves within their own body, understanding their own different layers, and then using that knowledge or using these universal laws within their own life and what's happening with their world, and then applying it to their patients, you know, learning that transmutation of energy, learning the way to kind of shift the energy within the room. And just by speaking, it's all about like how you present yourself and how you're communicating with the person. And so I think there's a lot of wisdom that can be derived from combining all of these things, because that's how it was taught in the olden days. And like, is there any core principle that you want to kind of share with everybody that you feel that especially the young, I know we talked about so much about the young generation and how, you know, they would respond to this very positively. Is there like some core teaching or principle you would want to kind of share with them?
Yeah, a lot of these spiritual directions, sometimes they can seem a little bit overly complex and overly information based. So, I mean, from an average person who's just trying to familiarize themselves, it can be a little overwhelming. But I think, you know, at the core of any and all of it, if someone can first get some kind of a sense of that life is not a divided phenomenon. It is one thing. There is a unity to all life. And if we can kind of conceive of that, it's the basis for everything else that comes. Probably the most human of all capacities and the most powerful is this thing the Dalai Lama talks about all the time, you know, compassion. Compassion really and unity are two things. As soon as we understand that the suffering of another is not something that's separate from me, then we start to respond accordingly. And then we also start to find that we have deeper and deeper insights within our own lives through connecting ever more broadly with this universal human family. So if we can just get a sense of unity, oneness, hold that in front of us, I think it's going to go a long way toward moving us through this very unsettled moment that we're in right now, and moving us into a future that is really worthy of all of the work of those who have come before us, is worthy of the longings of all of the people that I know. Everybody wants a world that's better, that's fair, that's kind. Even if they act unkindly toward others, they want you to be kind to them. Everybody wants kindness. So those are the sorts of things that grows out of a sense of unity. The ability to heal grows out of a sense of unity. The awareness of the multidimensional aspect of our own being and the universe we inhabit grows out of an understanding that eventually matures into an experience of unity. So oneness, unity, non-separateness, interdependence, whatever word works for you, focus on that. And I think that would be the thing that I would ask, you know, anyone, whether it's a theosophist or a scientist.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, this was so enlightening. I'm so grateful to have you being connected and to do this. It really was enriching for me, and I am really, really honored to share the camera with you today, Tim. So thank you.
Mutual. Feelings mutual. Thank you.